Hey everyone, welcome back to Devirite Technologies. In this video, it will be a detailed one where we'll be creating a chatbot in Microsoft Teams using Microsoft Bot Framework SDK C Sharp. This chatbot will take a file as an input, then we'll index that file using Azure AI Search and will let user query that file using Azure OpenAI Service. So we'll be implementing RAG pattern end to end with the help of Microsoft Teams bot. The user can ask questions from their documents. So let's start. I'm on the Azure portal. I have created three services, or you can say I have created three resources: Azure bot, Azure search, and storage account. So whenever user will upload a document through Microsoft Teams, will send that document to Azure storage account. And based on the document from the Azure storage account, we'll call a Azure function that will perform the indexing part of it and index the document in Azure AI search. So this is the process that we'll be following. I've already shown many times in the channel how we can create these resources. These are the basic ones. So yeah, let's head to Visual Studio. Okay, I do not have the bot framework templates. Let me go ahead and install that. Since this is a new machine, so I do not have that. When you install bot framework templates, make sure your Visual Studio is closed. And we'll be using core bot template. The reason being, we'll ask the user to ask the questions from their document. We can do this in many ways. The first way would be to let user choose the indexing type that they want to perform. For example, I'm asking the user to upload the document, and I'm also taking the input from the user whether they would like to perform keyword based search, semantic search, or vector search, or hybrid search. So these inputs we can take it from the user, it's up to us, or we can make it as default as hybrid search that will have the combination of vector plus semantic. So we have the bot framework templates installed. Let's choose the core bot template next. And let me give it as a name as Teams GPT dot bot. My solution name will be Teams GPT and the project name will be Teams GPT dot bot. Well, it will not create this project in .NET Core 3.1. It will create in .NET 6. We'll need to upgrade this to .NET 8. Right click on the project, go to properties, and target framework, move to .NET 8. Once this is done, Make sure your dependencies also support .NET 8. Right click on dependencies, manage NuGet packages, go to updates, select all. Okay, this one I do not want to include pre-release. So yeah, select all and update. Now my packages are also supporting .NET 8. You'll still see a warning icon on the dependencies. Just close the Visual Studio and reopen the project again. Now it's restoring NuGet packages. Now you should not see the warning icon on the dependencies. It's still restoring. Okay, I guess it's completed. Perfect. First thing first, let's get rid of all the files and folders which we do not need as part of this project. I'll delete cognitive models, deployment templates. I'll delete booking details, flight booking recognizer. Under dialogues, delete booking dialog, date resolver dialog. Since we deleted some of the folders and files, the references also needs to be deleted. First, open up your main dialog and remove all the references pointing to the deleted files. Let me increase the screen size to 125%. Perfect. And let me get rid of the step content. The first thing, I do not need this particular method. I'll remove the content of intro step, act step, and finally the final step. I just kept this statement that will allow me to restart the dialog from the start. And also I kept a statement in act step, that is next async, that will just move to the next step. And here I'll just write some statement. Hi, I'm a bot. How can I help you today? And then move to the next step. Here, instead of replace async, the reason being I have not implemented much of the things, so I'll just end dialog. This will change this, but for the time being, I'll just end the dialog. All right, so all good for now. What is this warning message? Prompt message is not used. That's fine. Let's run this and see this in action in Bot Framework Emulator if it is showing something. copy the endpoint URL and connect. So we do have the welcome message. It's an adaptive card, and we do have a message from the intro step. Hi, I am a bot. How can I help you? If I just say something, it will also respond with the same message. Okay, this is done. Next step. Since we are on .NET 8 and we want to write some minimal code, so we do not need startup.cs file. We'll move its content, basically all the dependency injections, to program.cs file. So let's move that. I just moved all the dependency injections from startup.cs file to program.cs file, and this is how it looks like. These are all your middlewares and these are all your services. Now we can get rid of startup.cs file. Just delete it. And also double check if this implementation that we just did is correct. Run the project. Go to emulator. Restart the bot. And we are still getting the response back. So this seems to be fine. Okay. Now let's go to bots. Open dialog bot. Since we are making this chatbot for Microsoft Teams channel, change the activity handler to Teams activity handler. And also go to dialog and welcome bot. Here we don't want to send an adaptive card as soon as the user joins the conversation. So in that case, I'll just remove this piece of implementation. Just remove these three statements. And we just need to run our main dialog as soon as user joins the conversation. We'll send this welcome card from the main dialog itself, but not from the dialog and welcome bot. So let's get rid of this method. All right, so run this again. Restart. Now we do not have a adaptive card welcome message. It just shows me the message that I have written in the main dialog. Perfect. Now coming to main dialog. All right, so let's move to the next part of the implementation. In this chatbot, we do not only want the user to query their documents, we also want the user to query normal ChatGPT, that is ChatGPT without data, so that if they have anything, ChatGPT without data will be able to respond back. Else, it will respond from their documents itself. So this chatbot will create in such a way that this will be extendable and also will implement a lot of new features in this chatbot using semantic kernel agents. So for the time being, we'll just implement ChatGPT without data, having a memory context using Azure Cosmos DB. We already implemented this long time back, but the memory context that we used was using Azure storage account, that is table storage, that is not at all recommended. So we'll implement in this video ChatGPT without data, having the memory context using Azure Cosmos DB. I'm here again on the Azure portal. Let's create a Azure Cosmos resource. I'll choose Azure Cosmos DB for NoSQL. Create. I'll be choosing the free tier implementation that allows me 1000 request units per second free and also 25 GB of storage free. So I have selected that option. Apply free tier discount. I guess it's not applicable for me because I might have already used the Cosmos DB free tier. That's fine. So, okay, that's fine. Let's move next. Let's move to our Visual Studio and try implementing something before this resource is getting provisioned. So I'm on the intro step. Let me get rid of this statement. Okay. So first thing, let me get options. I'll tell you what I'm doing. Okay. So what does this statement mean? I'm just checking. First, I'm getting the options. I'm just checking if options is null. Then I'm moving to the next step without doing anything. If options have some value in it, then I'm asking the user to enter something, enter some input. And I'm not sending a prompt message. It's blank prompt, blank text prompt, you can also say. I'm not letting I'm not saying anything to the user to enter something. I can also say, hey, how can I help you today? But I'm not saying anything. Let user input something to the bot. Now, coming back to the final step. Here we commented this out, right? So let me uncomment this. Remove end dialog statement. Here we have written something, prompt message. What else I can do for you? It's just a some message. It has nothing to do with your implementation or your logic, or this message will not be shown anywhere to the user. So where we are passing this prompt message, we are passing as an option. And replace dialog will replace, basically it will restart your current dialog once you have options in it. So what it does, it asks the user something like the blank prompt. It waits for the user input. And when options will be null, when user is coming here for the first time, then only options will be null. Otherwise, at all the other places, options will have some value, and that value will be this. So for all the other scenarios, Options will have this prompt message as a value. It will wait for the user to input something, and only for the first time when user joins the conversation or bot is restarted, then only options will be null and we are moving to the next step without doing anything. All right. Okay, our Cosmos DB resource has been provisioned. Let's go to the resource. So the total throughput limit has been given 4,000 request units. That's really huge, and it is going to affect my pricing, and let me change that option. I think I should have created a serverless option, but that's fine. Let me make that as 100 request unit because I'm going to create a single database with 100 request units. Okay, let this get updated. Let's move back to our bot. Let's get rid of this statement. First thing, we'll capture the user input. And it will not, well, it will be part of result, but it will be mostly, we'll capture it from step context dot dot text. We have the user input with us. Next, let's add a switch statement. User input. Well, Copilot wrote all these steps. Let's get rid of all of them. For the time being, I'm just implement just the hi hello. Okay. Hello, how can I help you today? Currently, this is hard coded. Once we implement ChatGPT without data, even this hi hello will be handled through ChatGPT. For now, I'll just say hi hello and run the bot. Okay, so something is missing. Okay, not all code returns a value. After this, I'll move to the next step. The bot encountered an error. That's good. Really good. So let's see what is the error. I'll move to adapter with error handler and let's see what's the error from the .NET Core server. So let me move back. Okay, object reference not set to an instance of an object, null reference exception. Okay, and this is from line number 54 in main dialog. Okay, at the start, yes, user input will not have any value in it. That is the reason we cannot perform this operation on the user input, because when user will join the conversation, this value will be blank. Yeah. Okay, let's run this again. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Perfect. And this is coming from default because none of the case statement is valid. And let's say hi. It says, hello, how can I help you today? It stays there. It waits for the user input. Let me say hello again. Again. I'll say hey. So this time the condition did not match, so it's throwing me an error. So it's going to the default case. Okay. Now, i- so we'll implement the ChatGPT logic in the default case only. All right. So first, let's create some projects here. I'll create few class libraries. Teams GPT dot models. Let's start by creating models. Next, I'll create services. Teams GPT dot services. And what else we need to create? Well, we also need a function app, but that we'll create later, not now. I'll just get rid of this statement for now, or let me implement this here. Okay, so what I'm doing first, I'm creating a Boolean property if it is a new user or if he's coming for the first time. I'm making it false. So how do we identify whether it is a new user and he's coming here for the first time? The first time the user input will be blank. As we have seen, as soon as the user starts the conversation, it goes to the default case. We can see it here. So as soon as I start the conversation, I'm getting the message, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. So it is coming to the default state because the user input is null. So we are checking that here, and or user input can be new. So this statement or this keyword will be used for me to restart the conversation from the start. First thing I'm checking if it is null or if it is new. If it is new, then we are making the property true and we are setting the property high. So because we are setting the input for the chat GPT to respond to this. So we are sending hi to chat GPT when user joins the conversation for the first time and when user types new. Okay. Now, since we wrote hi, let's move next. Before moving ahead, let us move to Microsoft Teams bot. Let me run my ngrok. Let's someday update the ngrok. I'm here on the Azure portal and I'll need to add my endpoint in Azure bot service. I think this throughput has been provisioned. That's good. Now it's 100 request units per second. I'll go to Azure bot, configuration, endpoint URL / API / messages. Since we configured the messaging endpoint, we also need to configure the app ID and app password in our Azure bot service. Before that, okay, let's implement everything here itself. Microsoft App ID, bot type, and the password. For multi-tenant bots, tenant ID will be blank. Alright, so this is fine. Let's run the project again and see if my Microsoft Teams bot is responding. But how it will respond, because we have not created our manifest. So let's do that. I've created the manifest. If you want to learn how we created this manifest, you can watch any of our previous video. So this is a manifest.json file here, and the ID, I've kept it as our app ID from app settings.json. Give a name, description of the bot. The bot ID also will remain the same. The scope we are targeting is the personal scope, and make sure your support files is true. All right. So now we can zip this up. Run the project. Go to Teams, Apps, Manage your apps, Upload. I'll open ngrok as well just to confirm if my requests are coming in. And there we have the first one will be the installation update, and then second one will be conversation update activity. And here at start we are getting, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. If at all we implemented that ChatGPT, it will be the first input will be null, and the first response will be coming from ChatGPT, responding to the hi message. If at all I type something now in Teams, let's say hi, hello, how can I help you today? So I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. So this will work. Okay, coming back here, let's implement some few things as well now. The first thing that we want to implement is Cosmos DB helper. Let's rename this itself. And I'll keep this under Azure services, and under Azure it will be storage, because we might have create multiple storage in future. All right, Cosmos DB helper is created. Now let's add some logger. All right. The next service we will need the AI services. I'll name this as cognitive. Let's make that as Open AI Helper. Again, let's add logger. We also need some of the bot services. The first one will be hmm, let's not add now, maybe later. Okay, let's implement Cosmos DB helper now. Before implementing Cosmos DB helper, let me create some model classes. The first one will be conversation. Let's put that in Cosmos DB. And the properties that we need for conversation will be, I created this 5 properties. The one is ID. This will be conversation ID. Let me give a comment. Teams conversation ID. The second, it's AD object ID as the name suggests. Third, type. Type will be conversation. For the conversation object, and created at and updated at. Let me do one thing. Let me make this as a base entity. And add these over there because nothing will be changing. These are my base entity, and I'll create one more. Let me change this to conversation entity. And this will inherit from base entity without any new properties. And I'll add one more, message entity. This will also inherit from base entity, except it will have two new properties: role and content. All right, let's make this as required. Even this is a required field. Coming to base entity, let's make them required. So I have message entity, role, content, and I have base entity which will be initialized. Perfect. Also, let me add one more thing here. Basically, we are serializing this object into string, and this operation will be performing at both the places. Perfect. Let me change this name as entities. All right, so our model classes is completed. Now we can focus on Cosmos DB helper. We have added the generic functionality of the Cosmos DB helper. Here, we initialize the Cosmos client database. Then we initialize the database, initialize the container. So these two methods, if database is not exist, it will create a new one. Similarly, if the container is not there, it will create a new one. It will keep track of all the containers in a concurrent dictionary. That's a local memory. And we do have some operational methods such as upsert item. Upsert item, it will just insert or replace an existing item. Query item, querying multiple items based on the query definition. Delete and get the container. So these all generic functionality methods we have implemented, and let's move forward.